Orange County community, we're looking to address a very important issue that will affect this community and all Floridians for at least the next decade, if not longer. And so we want to make sure, above all things, Florida TaxWatch has an independent nonprofit watchdog group, guide dog, that we assist the communities so we count everyone. We want to make Florida count. So joining me this morning, I'm very honored, is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer and Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings. We'd also like to thank members of the business community and local legislators for joining us today. I'd like to recognize Representative Geraldine Thompson. Geraldine, thank you. I was going to say Senator, but it's Representative Geraldine Thompson. Senator Victor Torres, thank you, sir. And Representative Bruce Antone. So thank you all very much. The importance of the 2020 census simply cannot be overstated. It affects everything from healthcare, transportation, economic development, roads, university funding, kindergarten through 12th grade funding, early learning, the very dynamics of our entire community. And it's really important because Florida is the third largest state, but it's also the fourth fastest growing state in the nation. Last time we had a definitive assessment was given congressional testimony in 2001 for the 2000 census. PricewaterhouseCoopers had done a study and gave testimony to the Congress and discovered conservatively the undercount in Florida was 200,100 people. The undercount, known undercount, was 200,100 people 20 years ago. That number could be closer to 300,000 to 400,000 today, which would be eclipse, basically not counting Orlando. We just can't have that. So the efforts today by both mayors and commissioners and our local leaders, working with folks like the Urban League who are here, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the local communities, one community at a time, one neighborhood at a time, making them feel comfortable and safe to complete the forms, make sure we capture everybody, particularly the homeless and the transit. Florida's challenge is harder than most because we are not only a large state, fast growing, but it's a very transient state. And we want to make sure that we count. There's over 132 programs that the federal government funds using census data and doles out nearly $800 billion. So it's just a tremendous amount of money. Florida and Floridians pay the federal government some $200 billion each year to the federal government. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking that we get our legal and lawful and fair share. And so even if we were to count every single person, which is virtually impossible, because we're such a fast-growing state, by 2023, 2024, 2025, a lot of those federal funds based on the census of 2020 is going to go to other states where Americans no longer live. So no matter how well we count, it's still not going to be enough. But what we're doing here is so critically important. Our local governments, these folks here are being very vigilant and are going to have a special announcement. I'm really glad to hear that. An opportunity to return these tax dollars back to the communities. So without further ado, let me turn this over to Mayor Dyer to talk more about the city of Orlando and their participation. Mayor?
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Dominique, and thank everyone for coming this morning. I especially want to thank our faith-based leaders who are here. I want to acknowledge our City of Orlando Department representatives, and I want to thank the representatives in the regional census organizations. Having an accurate count is critically important, and it's one of the issues that Republicans and Democrats and independents ought to be able to agree on. There aren't that many these days, it seems like, but counting every single Floridian is so important. As Dominique mentioned, it affects so many different funding opportunities for federal funds, and then it affects reapportionment for elected officials from the congressional level to the state level all the way to the local level. So we want to do everything in our power to make sure that everybody is counted. It's going to be easy to complete forms this year. You can do them right online, and I want to announce that I have named Leela Allen as chairperson of our City of Orlando Complete Count Committee. Leela, would you stand up and be recognized, please? Leela has been a true public servant. She served as the head of our housing department and on the Orlando Housing Authority. I know she'll do a great job in coordinating our committee. Our Complete Count Committee will be comprised of volunteers who represents all facets of our city, including representatives of the small business community, faith-based organizations, community groups, and multicultural associations. And in fact, our brand new multicultural committee, city committee, is meeting for the first time as we speak up on the second floor right now. We look forward to working extremely closely with Orange County government, and it's important that Mayor Demings and I work completely together on this. So, Mayor Demings, I pledge that Leela will work in direct contact with your group to make sure that we coordinate all of the opportunities that we have to make sure that everybody's counted. And with that, Mayor Demings.
All right, thank you, Mayor Dyer, and it's an honor to be here to participate in this press event today with our colleagues who are elected officials at various levels here. I appreciate the Florida TaxWatch organizing today's conference, highlighting the steps we're all collectively taking to ensure our community is accurately counted in the 2020 census. From the Orange County perspective, our lead is Mr. Melvin Pittman, who will be working with our other local governments, the U.S. Census, as well as the nonprofit organizations throughout our community to ensure that we have an accurate count. Orange County, with a population of about 1.3 million people, makes us the fifth most populous county in the state of Florida, and growing by a net of nearly 1,000 new residents each week. And so that makes us the fastest growing county really in the state of Florida. Knowing that approximately $700 billion in federal funds are distributed annually to state, local, and tribal areas as a result of the census data, Central Floridians must be counted. Again, we want to ensure that we get our fair share of federal dollars back into our community. In addition to federal funding and an additional congressional seat, census data is important to our local economy. Schools and local governments also use census data in making various decisions. Businesses use census data to decide locations for new factories, offices, and stores, and they use that in terms of creating the jobs that we need to have here in this community. Developers use the data to decide where to build homes and new neighborhoods. Residents can use the census data to support community initiatives involving legislation, quality of life decisions, and even advocacy for those of you who represent our nonprofit community. We want to make sure that our residents fully understand the role they play in the next census and allocating these dollars again back to our community. So it is absolutely important that we have an accurate count. And at this time, I will turn it back over to Dominic for the final remarks.
Just before we do that, I want to acknowledge Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Ings, who are here with us today, and also call on Senator Torres, who wants to talk about efforts that are going to be made in the Hispanic community to make sure all our Latinos are counted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to recognize my colleague back there, Bruce Anton, and Representative, you should come up here. I just want to say a few words and in the census. As the senator for District 15, which covers parts of Orange County and all of Osceola, and as you know, the influx of all the Puerto Ricans that came from as a result of Maria, the hurricane, our growing population in both counties has to be accounted for. I can't stress la importancia para la comunidad latina que se cuenten en el census el año que viene, porque es importante. I can't stress the fact how important it is to be counted for our schools, for our housing, for everything that encompasses and how we get able to the state have more money for our residents. To me, it's an honor, and I thank both mayors and what they're doing, and you can rest assured that I'm going to be doing my part and making sure that our Latinos in the community are counted in this census. So thank you again for the opportunity.
You know, I want to emphasize this. You heard Mayor Dyer say this is truly a bipartisan effort. TaxWatch got involved in this as a nonpartisan group back in the 1980s. We were recognizing in the late 80s that we were still using the 1980 census and we were getting shortchanged. Okay, Florida gets, if we got the average amount of money per person of a grants and aid, we would be receiving $14 billion more each year. Okay, so right off the bat, we're disproportionately not receiving our fair share. So we worked hard, and we got two of our U.S. senators, Bob Graham at the time, Senator Graham, and Senator Connie Mack, really working together in a really very, very bipartisan way to try to get the Congress to use updated annual estimates of population. Each April 1st, the Census Bureau does have estimates of the population. So we wanted to have all of those 132 programs, which are outlined in the report you have there, used more current. So we send money to where Americans currently live, not where they once lived. Okay, so they worked on it in a bipartisan way, and we want to make sure we continue to do that because it's just so important. Let me ask if there are any other commissioners or want to make any more comments. Senator, Representative?
Good morning. The census is so important, and before the 2010 census, our governor, who at the time was Charlie Crist, put together a commission to make sure that Floridians were counted and counted accurately. Those of us in the legislature have asked our current governor to put together a commission to do the same thing just prior to the 2020 census. That hasn't occurred at this point. And so I am very happy to be here with our mayors because they are taking the responsibility on the local level to do what we should be doing at the state level. And so I will be working with them to make sure that we get an accurate count because, as you've heard, so much funding is tied to the census. And we only get to do it once every decade. So we won't have an opportunity for another 10 years to get it right. So I congratulate both mayors on taking the leadership with regard to the 2020 census and sharing this information with others who can communicate with people throughout the county how important it is to respond to the census. Thank you.
Listen, we'll try to answer some questions, maybe if it's easier after the fact, but I do want to state again how important we appreciate Florida TaxWatch to see the collaboration of the city, the county, commissioners, the local communities. Again, it's really, we see this as neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, counting homeless, counting the hard to count, and it's really important. So the more efforts we can take sooner than later, we'll have a more complete count. And again, there's still a lot of things we can do with appropriate representation in the Congress to make sure that even after this, let's see if we can try to resurrect that effort of getting annual estimates of population. So by 2025, we can use maybe the 2025 estimate of population because there'll be more Americans living in Florida than when they move from other states to Florida. Because why not? Look at this beautiful community you have here and the great work of these folks and others before them. So without further ado, we're very honored to be part of this effort. It's making sure that, first and foremost, we make Florida count. Thank you all very much.
Done.